The alien princess selected him, and even the queen couldn't believe what happened. The air was filled with a hum of activity, thousands of beings moving in precise patterns, some floating with anti-gravity devices, others walking on platforms that curved and twisted impossibly high above the ground. It was the day of the grand ceremony, a day when Princess Lyra would choose a champion for the galaxy's most prestigious interstellar competition. The Zerithians had never allowed outsiders to participate, and certainly not humans. Captain Ethan Shaw had no idea how he had arrived here. One moment he had been performing routine maintenance on his Earth research vessel. The next, he had been sucked through a shimmering portal that had appeared without warning. The last thing he remembered was a flash of light and a sharp gust of wind. Now, he stood on an alien platform, surrounded by beings whose appearances were so varied that he struggled to comprehend them. Some had translucent skin that shimmered with the colors of their emotions. Others had multiple limbs moving in harmony, and all of them gazed at him with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. Ethan's heart raced. He was not a fighter, nor a competitor in any way. He was an explorer, a thinker, someone who preferred calculations and problem-solving to physical challenges. Yet, here he was, dressed in a simple uniform that seemed almost comical against the elaborate ceremonial outfits of the Zerithian nobles. He tried to steady his breathing, reminding himself that panicking would do no good. Princess Lyra appeared then, descending from a floating platform with an elegance that seemed to bend the air around her. She was tall with a presence that demanded attention, and her eyes, large and luminous, scanned the crowd with a mixture of pride and curiosity. When her gaze fell on Ethan, something unexplainable crossed her face. It was not fear, nor was it disdain. It was interest, sharp and deliberate, as if she had seen something in him that no one else had noticed. The crowd quieted, sensing that the moment of selection had arrived. Lyra raised her hand, and a soft, resonant tone filled the air. "Today," she began, her voice carrying effortlessly across the massive plaza, "I will choose a champion who embodies the qualities we seek: intelligence, courage, and ingenuity. Someone who can represent our people in a way no one else can." There was a pause. Hundreds of competitors, all native to Zerithia, straightened in anticipation. Their faces were filled with confidence, some with smugness, certain that the princess would select one of their own. Yet, Lyra's eyes remained on Ethan. "To my surprise," she continued, "the champion I choose is not one of us. The champion is," she smiled, and the air seemed to shimmer around her, "a human." A murmur spread through the crowd like wildfire. Humans were known in Zerithian records, of course, but only as a curious, fragile species from a distant corner of the galaxy. They had no history in the competition, no experience with the rigorous challenges that tested every skill a Zerithian could master. Selecting a human seemed preposterous. Ethan froze. His mind raced, trying to process the words. Did she mean him? Surely not. He was just a visitor, a mistake in the flow of the universe. Yet Lyra's gaze held him steady, and the soft hum of her authority silenced the doubts around her. The queen, Velira, Lyra's mother, appeared at that moment, standing at the edge of the platform with her regal bearing. Her face was a mask of shock and disbelief. Humans were weak. They lacked the discipline and the physical prowess to survive in the trials of the competition. Yet her daughter had chosen one. "This is unprecedented," Velira murmured under her breath, her voice carrying only a hint of worry. She had expected Lyra to select a champion from among the best and brightest of the Zerithians. She had not expected this. Ethan's stomach tightened. The eyes of thousands were on him. The whispers of curiosity, skepticism, and outright amusement washed over him. Some were intrigued, others mocked, and a few looked with genuine concern. He had no idea what to do. He tried to speak, but no words came out. All he could do was nod in understanding, hoping that his expression did not betray his confusion. Lyra descended from her platform with fluid grace, approaching him in a way that commanded attention yet offered reassurance. "Do not be afraid, human," she said, her tone calm and deliberate. "You have qualities that my people have long overlooked. You see the world differently, and in that difference lies strength. Will you accept the challenge?" Ethan's mind spun. Accepting the challenge meant agreeing to compete in a contest that could very well cost him his life. He had no idea what the trials entailed, but from the history etched in the architecture around him, he knew they were legendary. They tested not only skill and strength but strategy, intelligence, and creativity in ways no human had ever faced. Yet looking into Lyra's eyes, he saw an invitation he could not ignore. Curiosity, a love for discovery, and a stubborn sense of courage stirred within him. I accept," he said finally, his voice steady despite the storm inside him. The crowd gasped. Some cheered in astonishment, some muttered warnings, and others stared as if they were witnessing a miracle. The Xerithian champions, who had trained their entire lives for this moment, glanced at each other with surprise and uncertainty. A human had never stood among them. And yet here he was, chosen by the princess herself. Lyra smiled, a hint of satisfaction in her eyes. "Then let us proceed," she said. "The competition awaits, and our eyes are open to new possibilities." Ethan was escorted to the palace, a massive structure of shimmering metal and crystal that seemed to float above the city. He could barely contain his awe. The hallways were wide, lined with art and technology unlike anything he had seen. Panels of light displayed complex algorithms, and sculptures seemed to shift and move as if alive. Yet amid all this splendor, he felt a strange sense of belonging, as if this chaos and complexity were not entirely alien to him. He was led to a chamber for preparation, where he was given garments that allowed freedom of movement and access to essential tools. Unlike the Xerithian competitors, who relied heavily on their physical abilities and advanced technology, Ethan's equipment was simple, practical, and versatile. It suited him, for he knew that his strength lay not in muscle or alien devices but in thought, adaptation, and ingenuity. As he examined the tools, Lyra entered quietly. She did not speak at first, simply observing him. Her presence was calm, commanding, yet filled with a warmth that put him at ease. "Most would fear standing here among the best of Xerithia," she said softly. "But you see challenges differently. That is why you were chosen." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. He was not a hero. He was not trained for combat or interstellar competition. But he was human, and being human meant he had the ability to think, to adapt, and to survive in ways that were not always obvious. He realized that this might be the moment to prove that humans could stand shoulder to shoulder with the galaxy's most advanced civilizations. The Queen's voice echoed in his mind, a reminder of the skepticism he would face. Yet he felt a strange calm. Challenges were part of his life, part of his training as an explorer. If anything, this competition might be the ultimate test, not of strength, but of mind and character. The day of the opening ceremony arrived. Ethan stood among the other competitors, feeling the intensity of thousands of eyes watching him. He noticed the subtle differences in how the aliens approached him, some with curiosity, some with disdain, and a few with cautious respect. They had been trained for this their entire lives, yet he had only moments to understand the arena, the rules, and the expectations. Lyra stepped forward to address the crowd. Her voice carried over the entire plaza, clear and resonant. "Let the games begin," she declared, and the arena opened in all directions, revealing landscapes that shifted and transformed with mechanical precision. Towers of crystal, rivers of liquid light, and platforms that floated in the air all awaited the competitors. Ethan's heart raced, but his mind began to work. Every problem had a solution, every challenge a pattern to uncover. He looked at the alien competitors, noting their confidence and physical prowess. He realized that his advantage was different. He did not need to match them in strength or speed. He needed to match them in thinking, in observation, in creativity. The first challenge began, and Ethan felt a surge of determination. This was his moment, not just to survive, but to show that humans could rise above expectations, that ingenuity and courage were universal strengths. The princess's gaze rested on him, steady and unwavering, as if she already knew that the story of this human was only beginning. And so, standing in the heart of an alien world, surrounded by beings far more advanced than himself, Ethan Shaw took his first step into the unknown. The adventure ahead was perilous, uncertain, and extraordinary, but he was ready. After all, being human had always meant finding a way, no matter the odds, no matter the universe. The morning light spilled over the alien city, painting the crystalline towers in hues of rose and amber. The plaza where the ceremony had taken place was now quieter, but the tension lingered in the air. Ethan Shaw felt a strange mixture of excitement and apprehension. He had been chosen by Princess Lyra, an honor beyond his understanding, yet he had no idea what lay ahead. Every glance from the Xerithian competitors reminded him that he was an outsider, and that their expectations for him were low. He followed the attendants through a series of corridors that seemed alive with technology. Panels glowed softly with shifting patterns, showing simulations of landscapes and movements. Ethan's curiosity drew him closer to each display, examining the mechanics behind them. It was not long before he realized that the competition would be far more than a physical test. It was a challenge of intellect, strategy, and creativity. The other competitors had already assembled in the arena, a vast space that stretched for miles in every direction. Towers of transparent crystal spiraled into the sky, rivers of glowing liquid wove through the ground, and platforms hovered midair, defying gravity. Alien creatures, some small and nimble, others towering and imposing, moved with precision and confidence. Ethan stood at the edge, feeling small and uncertain, yet determined. Lyra appeared beside him, her presence calm and encouraging. "The first challenge," she said, "is designed to test adaptability. The arena will shift, obstacles will appear, and you must find a way to reach the central platform before anyone else. Do not underestimate it, even if it seems simple." Ethan nodded, scanning the arena. Unlike the Xerithian competitors, he had no training, no ingrained instincts for navigating alien spaces. But he had something that could help: observation, reasoning, and creativity. He began to mentally map the arena, noting patterns in the floating platforms and the currents in the rivers of glowing liquid. The horn sounded, a deep resonance that shook the plaza. The competition had begun. Immediately, the Xerithian competitors leaped into action. They moved with speed and precision, calculating their trajectories, manipulating their technology with ease. Ethan hesitated for a moment, then realized that waiting would only put him at a disadvantage. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. His mind worked quickly, analyzing the safest path to the central platform. The first obstacle was a series of floating platforms that shifted unpredictably. Alien competitors hopped from one to another with practiced skill, some even using small devices to control their movements. Ethan studied the rhythm of the platforms and noticed a pattern, a subtle pulse in the glowing edges that predicted their next shift. Timing was everything. He waited for the perfect moment, then leapt. The first jump landed solidly, and for a moment he felt a surge of confidence. The next challenge was a river of glowing liquid that moved in currents strong enough to sweep a competitor off balance. Aliens dove in with jet-like suits, maneuvering expertly. Ethan had no such technology. He scanned the river, looking for irregularities in the currents. Spotting a series of glowing stepping stones just beneath the surface, he calculated the sequence of jumps necessary to cross safely. Each step required balance, focus, and courage. His heart raced as he moved carefully, but he reached the other side unscathed. Competitors who had underestimated him were beginning to notice. Some paused, glancing back with surprise. One of the taller Zerithians, a six-limbed being with sharp amber eyes, tried to block Ethan's path. He moved with speed, but Ethan's mind raced faster. He used a combination of feints, timing, and careful jumps to avoid confrontation, earning a nod of grudging respect from the alien. The final stretch was a series of vertical walls, some smooth and reflective, others jagged and unstable. Ethan's lack of alien physical training put him at a disadvantage, but he relied on his knowledge of physics and momentum. He noticed that the jagged walls had small footholds that the aliens seemed to ignore in their haste. Calculating angles and balance, he climbed steadily, using his hands and feet in a rhythm that felt natural. When he reached the top, he saw the central platform ahead, shining with a soft, golden light. Several alien competitors were already there, but Ethan realized that brute speed alone would not win the challenge. The platform had a series of puzzles, shifting panels, moving shapes and symbols that needed alignment. The others approached recklessly, trying to force solutions, but Ethan took a step back and observed. Patterns emerged. The panels responded to pressure, weight, and order. Symbols needed to match the sequence of the glowing river below. Ethan's mind worked like a computer, processing each variable, testing solutions mentally before committing to action. Slowly, deliberately, he moved panels, aligned symbols, and triggered mechanisms. One by one, the obstacles resolved, opening the final central mechanism. The arena's lights brightened, signaling the completion of the challenge. Ethan stepped onto the final panel just as a few of the alien competitors arrived. The crowd erupted, not in boos but in astonished applause. Humans had never succeeded in the competition, and here was one not only surviving but mastering the challenge in a way none had anticipated. Princess Lyra's eyes shone with pride and fascination. She had believed in him from the start, sensing something unique about human creativity and adaptability. The queen, Velyra, remained at the edge of the viewing platform, her face a mixture of disbelief and grudging admiration. She had underestimated the human species, and now her assumptions were being challenged in front of the entire galaxy. Ethan took a moment to catch his breath, feeling a thrill he had never experienced before. It was not just victory, it was the realization that his human qualities, curiosity, ingenuity, and courage, were not weaknesses. They were strengths that even the most advanced civilization could respect. The next challenge began almost immediately. It was less physical and more mental. Each competitor was presented with a holographic map of a distant star system. The goal was to identify the fastest and safest route to a hidden energy source, using clues scattered across the planets. Many aliens relied on instinct and speed, but Ethan approached it like a puzzle. He noted gravitational anomalies, orbital patterns, and surface conditions. Slowly, methodically, he plotted a course that balanced speed with safety. When he submitted his solution, the system analyzed it. Seconds later, a notification confirmed that his route was not only correct but optimal, faster than any solution submitted by the alien competitors. The crowd erupted again and whispers spread throughout the arena. This human was extraordinary. The Zerithians began to pay attention. They watched how he approached each challenge, noticing the patience, observation, and careful reasoning he employed. They saw that he did not rely on raw strength or alien technology, but on something more subtle: human creativity, adaptability, and intelligence. Even some of the competitors who had mocked him initially began to respect his methods. Lyra observed silently, her admiration growing with each success. She had seen something in Ethan that others could not: the ability to see beyond the obvious, to find solutions where others saw only obstacles. She knew that this human was not merely surviving, he was redefining what a champion could be. The queen, however, remained skeptical. One success does not make a human superior, she muttered to her advisors. He is lucky, not skilled. He may fail in the next challenge. Yet even she could not deny the growing murmurs of amazement from the audience and the visible respect in the eyes of her own people. Ethan took a brief moment to rest, but he knew there was no time for complacency. The arena had more challenges ahead, each designed to test a different quality. Strength, intelligence, strategy, endurance, and courage, all would be necessary to win. He felt a strange calm settle over him. He was human, and being human meant adapting to the unknown, finding solutions where none seemed possible, and never giving up. The following challenge tested teamwork. Competitors were grouped into pairs, and the task was to transport a delicate energy crystal across a treacherous terrain filled with shifting obstacles and sudden hazards. Many aliens struggled to cooperate, relying on individual skill rather than coordination. Ethan, however, observed his partner, a Xerithian who was strong but impatient, and quickly devised a system of signals and movements that allowed them to work in harmony. Together, they navigated the dangerous terrain, avoiding pitfalls and stabilizing the crystal when necessary. Other teams faltered, their lack of coordination costing them valuable time. Ethan's approach was simple but effective. Understand your partner, observe the environment, and act strategically. By the time they reached the endpoint, they had done so efficiently and without incident. Once again, the crowd responded with astonishment. Humans, it seemed, possessed a unique combination of thoughtfulness, adaptability, and empathy that could rival even the most advanced Xerithians. Ethan realized that his greatest strength was not his own skills alone, but his ability to see connections between people, technology, and strategy, something that few in the arena could match. As the day drew to a close, Ethan stood in the plaza once more, exhausted but exhilarated. He had faced challenges that no human had faced before and had emerged successful at every turn. The crowd, once skeptical, now watched him with a mix of awe and curiosity. Competitors who had doubted him began to nod in respect, acknowledging his abilities. Lyra approached him, smiling. "You have done more than I could have imagined," she said. "Not only have you succeeded, but you have also shown qualities that even the best of my people struggle to display. Courage, intelligence, and empathy, these are your strengths, and they are remarkable." Ethan felt a surge of pride. He had come from a distant, simple planet, unprepared for the complexity and challenge of this alien world. Yet he had relied on his human qualities, his mind, and his instincts, and he had succeeded. For the first time, he felt a sense of belonging, not just among aliens but in the vast galaxy, as someone capable of standing on equal footing with the most advanced civilizations. The Queen watched from above, her expression softening slightly. She had expected failure, yet the human had exceeded all expectations. Perhaps, she thought, there was more to humanity than she had believed. As the stars began to rise over the Xerithian capital, Ethan knew that this was only the beginning. Greater challenges awaited, tests that would push him further, but he felt ready. He was human, and being human meant never giving up, never underestimating the power of thought, courage, and ingenuity. The competition was far from over, but for now, he had proven that he belonged. And somewhere in the crowd, Princess Lyra smiled, knowing that her choice, the human, was already changing the way her people viewed the universe. The arena was quiet before the next challenge, but the calm was deceptive. Ethan Shaw stood at the edge of the platform, his mind alert and his body tense. Every movement, every detail of the alien world around him had to be observed carefully. He had learned much in the previous trials, the importance of patience, strategy, and observation, but he also knew that this challenge would be different. It was designed not just to test skill, but character. When the gates opened, a deep vibration echoed through the plaza. The competitors were led into a massive chamber that resembled a canyon, wide and treacherous, stretching far into the horizon. The walls glowed faintly, shifting patterns that seemed to hint at hidden dangers. Bridges of crystalline material arched over streams of flowing energy, some steady, some flickering unpredictably. Rocks floated in the air, suspended by invisible forces, creating paths that could lead forward or downward. Lyra's voice resonated through the arena. This challenge is one of teamwork and judgment. You will encounter obstacles and dangers. Decisions must be made quickly, but wisely. The lives of your companions depend on your choices. Ethan's mind immediately assessed the situation. The phrase "lives of your companions" indicated that this challenge involved more than individual skill. Others around him, Xerithian competitors, looked confident, but he saw hesitation in some of their eyes. They were strong and fast, but empathy, careful planning, and patience were often overlooked in favor of brute skill. The first obstacle appeared almost immediately. A narrow bridge made of crystalline tiles stretched over a deep river of glowing energy. A competitor ahead misstepped, and a sharp cry echoed as they nearly fell, saved only by a magnetic field that held the tiles steady for a moment before releasing them again. Ethan moved cautiously, testing each step, noting the vibrations and timing. He realized that speed alone was dangerous here. Precision and observation were key. Midway across, he noticed an alien competitor struggling on a floating rock, unable to maintain balance. Without hesitation, Ethan adjusted his position to offer guidance. Using hand signals and simple gestures, he helped the competitor find stability and continue forward safely. It was a small act, but it set the tone for the trial. Ethan understood that winning here would require more than individual skill. It required helping others, coordinating movements, and making decisions under pressure. The next obstacle was a series of energy barriers, pulsing in rhythm with the glowing river below. Timing had to be perfect. Even a second's miscalculation could send a competitor tumbling into the energy flow. The aliens around him hesitated, some trying to force their way through, others attempting to calculate too quickly. Ethan observed the pulse carefully and realized that the barriers operated in pairs. He timed his jumps precisely, moving with confidence and control. Several competitors were caught mid-jump, falling into minor energy traps that caused them to restart portions of the challenge. Ethan, however, moved steadily, guiding a small group of aliens who had lost their rhythm. He gave them subtle cues, shared observations, and helped them avoid hazards. Slowly, word of his approach spread. Even the stronger competitors began to notice that he was not rushing blindly. He was thinking, observing, and protecting lives. As the challenge progressed, the terrain became more unstable. Platforms tilted, energy streams surged unpredictably, and floating rocks shifted without warning. One competitor, a tall Xerithian with 4 arms, fell into a gap between platforms. Ethan reacted instinctively. Using his knowledge of balance and weight distribution, he grabbed a support beam, extended it to reach the falling competitor, and managed to pull them back onto the platform. The crowd watching from above murmured in astonishment. Humans had never demonstrated such quick thinking combined with practical action. The arena's next test was even more demanding. A narrow canyon split the competitors into separate paths, each filled with mechanical traps. Ethan quickly realized that a misstep by any one competitor could block the path for others, creating a domino effect of failure. Using a combination of signals, careful planning, and observation, he coordinated a route for his group. He identified weak points, warned others of dangers, and ensured that everyone could pass safely. Midway through this section, disaster struck. A sudden collapse of one of the floating bridges trapped several competitors on an isolated platform. Panic set in. The competitors, unfamiliar with humans and skeptical of his abilities, hesitated. Ethan knew that waiting would be fatal. Without fear, he examined the broken bridge, noting loose segments, energy flows, and possible anchor points. Using a combination of ingenuity and human resourcefulness, he fashioned a temporary bridge using nearby debris, stabilizing it long enough for the trapped competitors to cross safely. The spectators erupted in astonishment. Never before had a human shown such courage and skill in the trials. Lyra's eyes shone with admiration. Even Queen Velyra, who had been skeptical from the start, watched in stunned silence. She had believed humans to be weak, fragile, and ill-prepared for the challenges of the galaxy. Yet here was one saving lives, solving problems with ingenuity, and showing a level of bravery that few Xerithians could match. The next part of the arena tested moral judgment. A series of glowing orbs floated above the ground, each linked to a competitor. Choosing an orb could provide significant advantages, shortcuts, protection, or resources, but at the cost of endangering others. Several Xerithians rushed to claim the orbs without hesitation, securing benefits while leaving others exposed. Ethan paused, weighing each option. He realized that taking an orb might help him individually, but it could risk the lives of those around him. Instead, he devised a different approach. Observing the energy patterns and timing of the orbs, he found a path that allowed him to claim the advantages while minimizing risk to others. He guided those nearby, signaling safe timing and optimal routes. His strategy worked flawlessly, and the group moved forward as a coordinated unit, their success dependent on trust and cooperation rather than individual dominance. As the day wore on, the challenges became more complex. Sections of the arena shifted unpredictably, requiring quick thinking, adaptability, and courage. Ethan's human qualities, curiosity, creativity, and empathy, shone in every trial. He observed patterns that others missed, noticed weaknesses in the terrain, and adjusted plans in real time. His combination of careful thought and bold action allowed him not only to survive but to excel. At one point, a competitor became trapped in a collapsing energy chamber. The Xerithians hesitated, unsure of how to help without risking themselves. Ethan acted immediately, using a nearby mechanical device to stabilize the chamber long enough to extract the competitor safely. His actions earned nods of respect from those who had doubted him. For the first time, the aliens realized that human ingenuity was not a weakness but a remarkable strength. Lyra watched from above, her admiration growing. She had selected Ethan for his unique qualities, but seeing them applied in the heat of challenge confirmed her instincts. Humans had the ability to think differently, to act decisively in unexpected situations, and to balance intellect with empathy. She knew that his presence was already changing perceptions, both among the competitors and within her own people. The Queen, Velyra, remained skeptical, but even she could not deny the results. Time and again, Ethan had demonstrated skill, courage, and judgment beyond what any human or Xerithian might have expected. She found herself quietly reassessing her assumptions about humanity. Perhaps there was more to this species than she had believed. The final segment of the challenge approached. A vast chasm divided the arena, with unstable bridges, floating rocks, and surges of energy threatening every step. Ethan surveyed the situation carefully. Competitors were already struggling, some falling into traps or becoming isolated. He realized that brute force or speed would not suffice. Precision, observation, and cooperation were necessary to cross safely. Using a combination of signals, guidance, and calculated action, Ethan led the group forward. He identified the safest sequences of jumps, the most stable platforms, and the timing of energy flows. Competitors followed his lead, trusting his judgment despite their initial doubts. Step by step, they crossed the chasm, reaching the other side safely. The final stretch involved a series of puzzles, mechanisms that required coordination and logical thinking to unlock. Ethan approached methodically, observing patterns and testing solutions mentally before acting. His group followed his instructions, each person contributing according to their strengths. Together, they solved the puzzles, completing the challenge in a manner that impressed spectators and competitors alike. When the results were announced, it was clear. Ethan had not only completed the challenge but had done so with exceptional skill, courage, and leadership. The crowd erupted in astonishment and admiration. Lyra's eyes shone with pride, and even Queen Vellyra could no longer deny the human's abilities. Ethan stood in the arena, exhausted but exhilarated. He had faced challenges that tested every aspect of his character: strength, intelligence, courage, and empathy. He had emerged successful, not by brute force or technology, but by relying on uniquely human qualities. He realized that his greatest strength was not his own skill alone, but his ability to observe, think, and act decisively while considering the well-being of others. As the stars began to rise over the Xerithian capital, Ethan felt a sense of accomplishment and purpose. He had proven that humans were capable of remarkable things, even in a universe dominated by advanced civilizations. And somewhere in the observation stands, Princess Lyra smiled, knowing that her choice, the human, was not only surviving the trials but redefining what it meant to be a champion. The queen, still hesitant, watched thoughtfully. She had underestimated humans, and the events of the day had forced her to reconsider her beliefs. Perhaps the human species had qualities that even the most advanced Xerithians could respect, and perhaps even learn from. Ethan, standing among the competitors, understood one thing clearly: the challenges ahead would only become more difficult, more dangerous, and more unpredictable. But he was ready. Being human had always meant adapting to the unknown, finding solutions where none seemed possible, and never giving up. The journey was far from over, but he had proven one undeniable truth: humans could rise to extraordinary heights when the situation demanded it. And in the quiet moments before the next challenge, Ethan allowed himself a small smile. He was human. He had been chosen by a princess, doubted by a queen, and underestimated by an entire civilization. Yet here he stood, ready for whatever the universe would throw at him next. The sun had barely risen over the Xerithian capital when the final challenge was announced. The air in the plaza was electric, filled with anticipation and tension. Competitors moved cautiously toward the massive arena, their faces reflecting determination, nervousness, or, in some cases, disbelief. Ethan Shaw, the human chosen by Princess Lyra, felt a familiar mix of excitement and focus. The previous challenges had tested his skills, judgment, and empathy, but this final test would demand everything he had, and more. The arena was enormous, stretching far beyond the eye could see. It combined natural landscapes with alien technology. Floating platforms hovered over molten rivers, crystalline towers twisted into impossible shapes, and energy streams pulsed unpredictably across the terrain. Holographic projections flickered across the sky, simulating dangers and obstacles that would shift without warning. The challenge was said to test intelligence, strategy, endurance, and leadership, all at once. Lyra's voice resonated above the arena, calm yet commanding. This final trial is not for the strongest, the fastest, or the most skilled. It is for the one who can lead, who can think, and who can inspire. You will encounter situations where choices must be made quickly. Some choices may save lives, others may cost them. Remember, a true champion sees beyond personal gain. Ethan took a deep breath, letting the words sink in. He knew that this challenge was not just about survival, it was about demonstrating the qualities that made humans remarkable. Courage, intelligence, creativity, and empathy were his tools, and he would need every one of them. The first phase began immediately. The arena shifted, creating a maze of floating platforms and narrow bridges above a river of energy. Competitors leaped and sprinted across, some with remarkable agility, others faltering under the pressure. Ethan observed the movements, noting the timing of shifting platforms, the energy currents, and the weaknesses in the bridges. He moved carefully but decisively, testing each step before committing and signaling others nearby about safe paths. A sudden tremor rocked the arena. One of the floating platforms began to collapse, trapping several competitors, including a young Xerithian with 4 arms and remarkable strength, but little experience in teamwork. The competitors panicked, unsure how to proceed without endangering themselves. Ethan did not hesitate. He assessed the situation, noting loose segments and energy flows. With precision, he extended a support beam, stabilizing the platform long enough for the trapped competitors to climb to safety. The crowd gasped in awe. Never had a human acted so decisively, combining observation, skill, and quick thinking in a high-pressure situation. Lyra's eyes shone with admiration, and even Queen Vellyra, standing above, could no longer deny the human's abilities. The next phase was a series of energy barriers that pulsed unpredictably. Several aliens attempted to rush through, miscalculating the timing and triggering traps that forced them to restart. Ethan observed patterns in the pulses, noting subtle variations that predicted their movements. Timing his jumps perfectly, he moved through with grace and precision, guiding others along the way. His actions were deliberate but fast, demonstrating a combination of intelligence, courage, and leadership. As the arena shifted again, the challenge became even more complex. A vast chasm opened before the competitors, filled with floating debris and surging energy currents. Some Xerithians attempted to leap across individually, relying on speed and strength. Ethan realized that solo efforts would fail. Success required cooperation. He quickly devised a system of signals and coordinated movements, directing competitors to work together to stabilize the debris and create a safe path. Step by step, they crossed the chasm, each person relying on Ethan's guidance. The crowd erupted in astonishment as the group reached the other side safely, a feat that many thought impossible. For the first time, humans were not just participants, they were leaders, capable of inspiring and guiding even the most skilled aliens. The next section was designed to test strategy and critical thinking. Competitors were presented with a holographic map of a complex alien system, filled with obstacles, energy traps, and shifting pathways. The goal was to retrieve a hidden energy core located at the center of the system. Many competitors rushed forward, relying on instinct or brute force. Ethan paused, studying the map carefully. He noted patterns, energy flows, and potential hazards. Slowly, he plotted a route that balanced speed with safety, considering both his path and the paths of others. When he began the journey, the obstacles proved daunting. Energy gates closed unexpectedly, platforms shifted without warning, and gravity currents threatened to sweep competitors off course. Ethan's plan required constant adjustment, but he adapted quickly, relying on observation, logic, and intuition. He signaled to others, offering guidance that allowed them to navigate hazards safely. By the time he reached the energy core, several competitors had been delayed or trapped, while those who followed his leadership arrived with him. The arena was far from forgiving. The final segment required endurance, precision, and courage. A narrow bridge spanned a molten river, suspended by energy beams that flickered unpredictably. A strong wind swept through the area, making balance difficult and forcing competitors to focus intensely. Ethan's mind raced, calculating angles, weight distribution, and timing. Step by step, he advanced, guiding others carefully, ensuring no one fell into danger. Halfway across, one of the competitors lost balance, teetering on the edge. Without hesitation, Ethan reached out, catching them and stabilizing their position. The crowd erupted again, witnessing the human not only surviving but saving lives in the process. Lyra's eyes glistened with pride. This was more than a competition. It was proof that humans had qualities beyond technology or strength, qualities that could change the course of history. As they approached the center, the final puzzle awaited. A massive mechanism required coordination among all remaining competitors to unlock. Symbols shifted, platforms moved, and energy barriers required simultaneous actions from multiple participants. Many aliens attempted to solve it individually, failing repeatedly. Ethan, however, observed patterns, coordinated movements, and gave clear, calm instructions. Each participant contributed their strengths while following his guidance. Slowly, the mechanism responded. Panels aligned, symbols lit up in sequence, and the final energy core activated. The arena's lights brightened, signaling the successful completion of the challenge. Ethan had not only succeeded individually, but had led others to success as well. The crowd erupted in applause, a mixture of awe, respect, and celebration. Humans had never achieved such a feat, and here one stood as a true champion. Lyra descended into the arena, her presence commanding yet filled with warmth. She approached Ethan, her eyes shining. "You have done more than anyone could have imagined," she said. "Not only have you completed the challenge, but you have also shown what it means to lead, to think, and to care for others. You have redefined the concept of a champion." Ethan felt a surge of pride but also humility. He had relied on his human qualities, observation, creativity, courage, and empathy. He had relied on the ability to adapt, to see beyond the immediate, and to act for the benefit of others. He realized that this was the essence of being human, the capacity to rise above challenges, to solve problems, and to inspire those around him. The Queen, Lyra, stepped forward, her expression softened. She had doubted humans, believing them weak and fragile, incapable of surviving in a universe dominated by advanced civilizations. Yet Ethan's performance had forced her to reconsider. "You have exceeded expectations, human," she said. "It seems we have underestimated your species." Ethan nodded respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty," he replied. "I only did what any human would try to do: observe, think, and act." The plaza erupted with cheers and applause. Competitors who had doubted him now looked at him with respect, some even with admiration. They had witnessed not just skill, but courage, leadership, and ingenuity. Humans, it seemed, could stand among the stars as equals, capable of inspiring and guiding even the most advanced civilizations. Lyra extended her hand to Ethan, smiling. "You have proven that humans are remarkable," she said. "Not because of strength or technology, but because of their minds, hearts, and spirits. You are a true champion." Ethan shook her hand, feeling the weight of the moment. He had traveled from a small, distant planet, unprepared for the complexity and challenges of the galaxy. Yet he had relied on human qualities, creativity, intelligence, courage, and empathy, and had succeeded. He had not only survived but had led, inspired, and demonstrated that humanity could rise to extraordinary heights. As the crowd continued to cheer, Ethan took a moment to look around. He saw competitors helping each other, spectators amazed by the display of human capability, and a princess proud of her choice. He realized that this moment was not just about victory. It was about changing perceptions, showing that humans could face any challenge, adapt, and thrive. The stars began to shine over the Zerithian capital, casting a gentle glow across the arena. Ethan felt a sense of peace and accomplishment. He had faced the ultimate test, combining intelligence, courage, strategy, and empathy, and had emerged successful. He had proven that humans were not just observers in the galaxy. They were capable, resourceful, and remarkable. Lyra stepped beside him, her presence reassuring. "This is only the beginning," she said. "There are countless challenges ahead, and humans have much to offer. Your journey has inspired not only your people but mine as well." You have shown that courage and ingenuity can change the course of history." Ethan nodded, understanding the truth in her words. Being human meant more than surviving. It meant thinking, adapting, and leading. It meant seeing possibilities where others saw obstacles. And it meant never giving up, no matter the odds. The Queen watched silently, her expression a mixture of respect and astonishment. She had doubted humans, but Ethan's actions had shattered every assumption. Perhaps humans had qualities that even the Xerithians could admire and learn from. Perhaps, she thought, they were capable of shaping the galaxy in ways no one had imagined. Ethan stood in the arena, exhausted but exhilarated. The final challenge was over, and he had not only succeeded but had inspired and led others. He had shown that humans could think, adapt, and act in ways that rivaled even the most advanced alien civilizations. The crowd's applause washed over him, but it was the quiet moments, the lives saved, the problems solved, the trust earned, that mattered most. And somewhere in the crowd, Princess Lyra smiled, knowing that her choice, the human, had not only survived the trials but had redefined what it meant to be a champion. Humans, she realized, were more remarkable than anyone had believed. Ethan Shaw, the human from a distant world, had arrived uncertain and unprepared, but he stood victorious, a symbol of ingenuity, courage, and the limitless potential of humanity. The galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary, the rise of a human champion, one who had earned respect, admiration, and a place among the stars. And in that moment, Ethan understood something profound. Being human was not a limitation, it was a gift. A gift to think, to act, to inspire, and to change the universe, one choice at a time. The alien princess selected him, and even the Queen couldn't believe what happened.